everyone, welcome back to WITH.G Reads. I'm Gabby and this is going to be my September wrap-up where I talk about all the books that I read in September. I hope you enjoy. So I had no sort of reading plans for September at all. I knew I was going to be a bit busy because I was moving into my flat, so I wasn't really sure how much reading I was going to get done, but I've had loads of time to read this month, so I've done pretty well. I've read, how many books? Let me count. I think I've read 10, which is pretty good for me. I usually sort of bounce around. I think my minimum would be like 6 or 7, and then my maximum I think has been like 12. So yeah, pretty good month for me. I'm just going to go through them all. I've tried to do them in the order that I've read them. I think this is the order that I read them in. And I think this takes me up to 98 or 99 books. So my next book, or the one after that, will be 100, which is very exciting. And it probably means that I'm definitely going to do better than my last year's reading, which I think I read 112 books last year. So if I'm already on 100 at the start of October, I'm probably gonna, I don't know, I don't think I'll reach 150, but I'll probably be close, which is exciting. So the first book that I read in September is The World's Wife by Caroline Duffy. I said before, I'll say it again, I'm not a big poetry fan, but I saw this cover and I just I couldn't leave without having it. It is absolutely the most beautiful thing. Essentially what this is, it's a collection of poems, obviously, that are from the perspective of the wife of the kind of main figure in fairy tales and myths and things like that, and just kind of culture, I suppose, because I think Charles Darwin's wife has a poem in here which is really good. And honestly, I loved nearly every single one. They're so clever, they're really funny but also quite serious, and they connect sort of the past or myth or fairy tale with modern day. Very clever. I loved it. I don't even think I can kind of mention favourites because I read it quite quickly, so I definitely will read it again. If you like poetry, if you don't like poetry, definitely try this because it's brilliant and tiny, sure, and you can probably find most of these poems online because I think they were published elsewhere before they got made into a book. So let me have a look at some of the characters. So as I said, Mrs. Darwin has got a poem. Who else have we got? Little Red Riding Hood, Queen Kong, Anne Hathaway, not the actress, Shakespeare's wife. The Cray Sisters, I love that one. The Cray Sisters, it's got loads of Cockney rhyme and slang in it, which I love because I'm from North London. I love a bit of Cockney rhyme and slang. My mum is technically a Cockney, so I really love that one. Elvis's sister has got a poem. They're so good. Definitely read them. Definitely look them up because I love them. They're brilliant. The next book I read was, I picked this up randomly. I have a proof of it. I think I requested the proof actually. And then kind of just never actually picked it up until I literally randomly just picked it up top of the pile and started reading it. But that is Counterfeit by Kirsten Chen. I always get Kirsten and Kristen really mixed up, but this is Kirsten. And what this is about, it's about 2 women who met when they were in college and then reconnect later in life. And one of them has sort of upgraded massively. She wears amazing clothes, she's got gorgeous hair, and she's got a really expensive handbag. And we find out that that particular woman, Winnie, she is involved in sort of a handbag scam where she will buy an expensive handbag from Chanel or whatever. She has a brilliant reproduction of it made, a fake version, and then she returns the fake version and sells the real version online. And it's kind of this whole empire, and Winnie basically gets Anna involved, and Anna is struggling with her husband, who is, I think he's a doctor, and so he's not around a lot. They have a 2-year-old that's kind of kind of, I wouldn't say he's got like learning difficulties, but he doesn't speak, and he is quite unhappy, and he cries a lot, and he has quite a lot of tantrums, and she can't quite figure out why. And so Anna is just kind of struggling and feeling alone, like no one's listening to her. And then Winnie comes into the picture and offers her this, this chance to make loads and loads of money. And it's about the two women, about the kind of the scheme, and it's told from Anna's perspective, a lot of it, as she's telling these details to a police detective once they've sort of been found out. Yeah, it was really good. It was really quick read, really nice and easy, but exciting. There were kind of like the odd little twists and turns, like you couldn't quite tell who was telling the truth and who wasn't telling the truth. But yeah, I really, really liked this. When does this come out? This came out in June, apparently. But I didn't really hear that much about it, which I feel like is a shame, because I think this would be like a really fantastic like summer read, like holiday read. So yeah, if you have seen this and you weren't really sure whether you should pick it up, definitely do, because it's a great book. Or June. I mean, you could wait till the paperback comes out, because I mean, it's not something that I would really buy in a hardback version, probably. So yeah, keep an eye out for the paperback of this if you're interested, and yeah, give it a go, because I really liked it. The next book I read in September was There Are More Things by Yara Rodriguez Fowler. Yeah, this was sent to me by the publisher, by Fleet, and I hadn't heard of this author before, but my manager at the bookshop was very excited that she had another book. So I picked this one up because I read the first chapter or the first few pages, and it really gripped me, so I thought I'd carry on. And essentially, it's about two women that meet as they share a flat, and they are both Brazilian. One has come from Brazil to London, and the other woman, her family are Brazilian, and she hasn't really got that much of a personal connection to it herself, and it's something that she kind of keeps a bit quiet. Like, she doesn't really talk that much about where she's from, where her family are from, and it kind of discusses the politics of Brazil, and in relation to their identity with the place. And I really liked it. It was heavier in some places and quite light-hearted in other places. Sorry, I had to go and swap out the lighting because it's raining and it's now really, really dark. So I've had to put a little light on. So it probably looks different, but hopefully not too bad. Okay, anyway. So I was talking about There Are More Things by Yara Rodriguez Fowler. Yeah, so the thing I liked the most about this is that it was just definitely set in London. There was all of these different references to London, and I loved it. It's like, it starts, the first kind of bit says, it was the year that Prince died and the guy who played Professor Snape died. It was the year that George Michael died at Christmas, and bright flowers and handwritten notes and laminated photos of him piled up outside his Highgate mansion in the frost. Ever since that winter, everywhere you go in London, you can hear the buskers playing Careless Whisper on their saxophones. They play it at the fullest volume, they play it after dark, into the dark. They play it to tourists in Covent Garden, at the bottom of the mosaic escalators at Tottenham Court Road Tube, on the crowded pavement outside Brixton Station. They play it on the summer nights, into the smell of bin bags. Love it. I love things set in London. I love when I'm watching a TV show and I can see London. Oh, love it. I'm a true Londoner. So yeah, I really liked that one as well. It was not really what I was expecting. It's very contemporary, which I don't often get on with, if truth be told, but that one I really did. I thought it was brilliantly done, and it's quite a big book, but I read it really, really quickly. That's because a lot of it is kind of told in little tiny short segments as well, so it does read really quickly. Next, I read Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe, and I think from this point are all the books that I was reading in my reading vlog. So if you've already watched that, you'll have heard me speak about these a little bit, so I won't go into too much detail on these because that's really boring otherwise. But yeah, again, I always say this is a book I've had for ages, because it was Waterstone's Book of the Month, and I had it since then, but I was not desperate to pick it up just because it's quite long and it's, you know, non-fiction, quite wordy, quite difficult to read. But eventually my curiosity got the better of me and I did decide to read this, and I really enjoyed it. It was really interesting. I knew a little bit about the Sacklers, but not that much, especially not in terms of the details of the actual drug that they created and the impact of it. So that was really interesting to read more about in this. Yeah, it was fantastic. The bits I liked the most, I think, were the bits where Keith himself actually sort of spoke about his own opinion and kind of came to his own conclusions about what was going on. I find that's always the most interesting part of non-fiction books, when the author, who kind of knows a lot more than the reader most often, inserts their own opinion and what they think, which often kind of helps you to feel like you're not just reading loads of like data and loads of lists and technical information. So yeah, as a non-fiction goes, this was really good. I liked it. Very, very sad, obviously, but brilliantly told. The next book I read, I picked this up on a bit of a whim, that is Indelicacy by Amina Kane. And this is a very, very short book. I'm not sure if it counts as a novella, maybe. Is there like a set word count for a novella? I'll have to look that up. But it's less than 160 pages, so it's very, very short indeed. And it's about a woman who works in a art gallery, kind of cleaning and looking after the paintings. And she gets a bit sick and tired of that life and wants something more. She really wants to be a writer. And she eventually marries a wealthy man and has all the time to write, but she kind of realises that actually she still is living in a world of a lot of restrictions, and kind of having access to somebody else's money isn't actually what makes her happy. But the thing I love the most about this book is that it is completely unclear what time it's set in. It reads like a Victorian classic, but also could be set in like modern day New York. It was brilliant, and though it wasn't necessarily plot driven or character driven, that kind of curiosity really kept you reading, and you were constantly looking for clues. It would kind of give away a time setting or a location, but no, it never does. And it was really well written. It was interesting but quite sparse in terms of language and the way it was written, but that really lent to the kind of ambiguity of it, which I'm still thinking about this, and I read it a couple of weeks ago. I think this will be one of the books that stands out for me actually this year, which is lovely because I was not expecting it to at all. This was one of the books I forgot that I owned and randomly picked up because the blurb sounded interesting and I wanted to read something quite quick after reading Empire of Pain, which is quite long. So yeah, I mentioned in my vlog as well, I'm really surprised this isn't more popular because it really fits in with that sort of like sad girl book that's popular at the moment. So if that's your sort of thing and you really like that sort of book, definitely look for this one next time you go book shopping. After that, I decided to read Grief is the Thing, not a thing, The Thing with Feathers by Max Porter. I'd only ever read one thing by Max Porter before, which was The Death of Francis Bacon, which I thought was very clever and I enjoyed, but I couldn't quite connect to it that much. It was a little bit too abstract for me, which was not really a problem I had with this one, because parts of it were quite abstract, but then parts of it weren't. I thought it was alright. I particularly enjoyed like the last section. It's about a man who he loses his wife, she passes away, and it's about him sort of going forward and coping with that grief. He has two boys, and about how they sort of interact and that the dynamic of their family changes, and he sees a crow sort of whilst he's dealing with grief, and that's obviously kind of how this book came about, and the crow is given a voice and we hear from the crow. That was a very loud motorbike. Anyway, so it's the crows sections that are quite abstract, and then the bits I kind of could have done without really. All the other sections I really liked, and as I said, I particularly like the end where the two boys, two sons, they've grown up and they've got children of their own, and they're sort of talking about how their grief and how they feel about the loss of their mum has changed now that they are parents themselves. And some of the lines were just so poignant and so touching that I thought I had in fact to stop and like process. After that, I picked up You Have a Friend in 10A by Maggie Shipstead. The reason I got this is because I have been wanting to read Great Circle for ages, but I'm a little bit intimidated by it and I'm a bit worried that I won't get on with her writing. So I thought if I read this, it's a less of a commitment because it's short stories and not like a massive like 500-page novel, then I would get a bit of an idea and I'd know sort of what to expect going into Great Circle. And I really like this. I spoke about it a lot more in my vlog. I won't speak about it too much here because I could go through each story but I'd be here forever. But out of the 10 stories in here, I think I really enjoyed about 8 of them. There were 2 that I kind of didn't really feel particularly strongly about, but the 8 stories in here, I think it's actually the first 8 is the last 2 that I wasn't too keen on. They are really great, and I've read quite a lot of short story collections, and I know that they can sometimes be hit and miss, and the stories within themselves can be a bit hit and miss within one collection, but this was really strong and really liked it. They were all really different, which I think was its strength, to be honest. I don't like it when I'm reading a collection of short stories and they all kind of feel the same. I have like very similar characters, they're set in the same place, but this didn't suffer from that. They felt completely different from one to the next, and they were very clever and they left me thinking about them a lot afterwards, particularly because a lot of them have very unlikable characters, which stayed on my mind. So yeah, love this. Next, I decided to read Wayward. It fits with the weather at the moment, which has kind of turned very autumny, and I know that this is about witches, so I thought I would give it a go. This doesn't come out until February next year, which is a bit of a shame because this is so good. I'd seen some people on Instagram talking about it, and I'll link them in the description if you want to go and have a look at their pages on Instagram, and I'd have people saying that this was really good. So I was quite excited, but obviously nervous as well that I wasn't going to agree, but I did. Again, I spoke about this in quite a lot of detail in my vlog, so if you want to find out all that information, go and have a read go and have a watch of that. And for now, I'll say it's about 3 women within the same family, different generations, and their sort of relationship with each other and nature, and their realisation that they have a kind of special ability that is a bit witchy. Yeah, this was really good. I think it might have been 5 stars, but I need to think on it more. I need to see how much it stays with me going forward. If you like witchy things, if you like multi-generational stories, then when this comes out in February, definitely read it because you probably will really enjoy it, and I think it's going to be really popular. I think it's going to be quite hyped when it does come out. I think that is the cover to expect when you see it on the bookshelf, so take note and add it to your wish list now. And then finally in September, the last book I kind of managed to squeeze in at the end was The Trial of Lady Chatterley's Lover, which is a really short little thing by Sybil Bedford. Basically, Sybil Bedford was present for the trial in 1960, where Penguin had printed lots of copies of the unedited version of the Lady Chatterley's Lover because it had gone on sale in the US. And essentially there was a court case about whether it should be allowed to be sold because, it's quite explicit. We all know now that it was allowed to be sold, but the details of the case and the witnesses and how it was all set up was really interesting to read about. And it's in 80 pages, so you can read it in an afternoon. And yeah, I really liked it. It was really interesting seeing sort of how the court process works in terms of books and banned books, especially at the moment. So yeah, if you're interested in that sort of topic, definitely see if you can get hold of this. It's published by Daunt Books, and it's rather pretty as well. And something tells me that they've kind of got more in a series a bit like this. So something about this type of book that makes me think there's like a few that you can collect. So I might check that out as well and see what else they've got. But yeah, if this sounds like the type of topic that you are interested and want to read about, definitely have a search for this. Okay, so that's all the books I read in September. I did start a book at the end of September as well, but I'll probably speak about that in my next wrap up for next month, because I haven't finished it yet. But yeah, those are all the books that I read. As I said, I had a pretty good month. I kind of liked everything I read. There was no complete duds. So yeah, hopefully we'll continue that energy in the next few months of the year. And I'm looking forward to reading some more spooky books in October, and then transitioning into festive, happy, lovely books sort of in November and December. If you've read any of these, let me know. If you want to read any of them, again, let me know and we can chat about it in the comments. Follow me over on Instagram and on Twitter. All of that will be linked in the description below. Yeah, have a lovely day, evening, morning, whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you in my next video.